Hello, everybody. It's Christine again with the Co-Living Code Show, where we interview the founders of some of the coolest co-living concepts around the world. And today we do have Reza Merchant on from the Collective, and we're very excited to have him on. He's based in the UK, he's based in London, and he's had some tremendous growth, and I know we'll launch into all of that. But first, Reza, we would love to hear your story of when you got started. It was 2011, right? When you first had the idea?
Yes, it was actually 2010. So I was still a student at the London School of Economics, and I guess there were a couple of things that have happened. One was that I, firsthand sort of experienced how difficult it was to find any remotely decent and accessible accommodation in London. So I went through the nightmare process of, house sharing and room sharing, whilst at university. And then secondly, it was clear to me that sort of loneliness and isolation was becoming a bigger and bigger issue in cities, in particularly London, where I was. And the thing that kind of drove home most to me was, when I was traveling in Thailand for 3 weeks on my own back in 2009, and I remember being there, and you'd walk past people on the street and they would smile at you and say hello, even if they were a stranger. And, I remember how nice that was. But, then coming back to London, kind of everyone's just in their world. And if you were to do that, to someone in London, people would think you're a weirdo. And I think that just epitomizes what is happening to our cities in terms of them becoming increasingly isolated and lonely places, and really hard to kind of establish a sense of human connection. And so I guess those were the background of why I wanted to do something that would, solve these problems.
And that launches perfectly into one of my biggest questions for you is now, how do you create that sense of a community in a building? Canary Wharf it's opening next month, correct?
Yes. That's
correct. And is it 705 units?
Correct.
Okay, so it's a big community. So how do you foster that connection within that many units?
So I think it comes down to a couple of things. One is around having the space in which to do that. So if you take Canary Wharf, it's 20 stories. On the top floor, we've got this awesome swimming pool with a restaurant, bar, spa area, other kind of restaurants throughout the building, cinema rooms, kind of big communal kitchens, just like the kind of shared space in which you can bring people together. And then you've got to activate those spaces, right, with events and programming, to create content that people are going to be engaged by and that people can learn from, and that, can ultimately sort of create that sense of belonging for people.
Awesome. No, and it's funny, and I know you know Hans over at Zoku. He says hi, by the way. I've been over there for a couple of weeks working out of Zoku. And, I think you nailed it. I think you said activate. You could build the most amazing community spaces, but then you have to activate them and make sure people are getting involved. Do you guys bring any of the outside community in for events?
Yeah, so for us, kind of integrating with local communities is incredibly important, because we don't just want to build insular communities which disregard sort of local areas, which is what a lot of real estate development that happens. That's what happens, right? This big shiny thing gets built, and it isolates and alienates local community. Whereas we believe that actually we're responsible for having a positive impact to the local communities in which we build our spaces. And so our ground floors are publicly accessible. And the events program at Canary Wharf, a portion of it will be accessible to the public. We also have a business called Makeshift, which we're sort of majority shareholder and investor in. And Makeshift is all about taking disused spaces and turning them into these really vibrant community-led hubs. So in London, we have 2 projects under Makeshift. One is Pop Brixton, where we took a disused piece of land. It was actually a car park that wasn't being used. We built a village made of shipping containers. And each of those shipping containers was let to, firstly, like all independent businesses, and secondly, like 70% of those businesses are local to that area. And you have this amazing mix of street food operators. You've got a barber, you've got a record store, you've got a radio station, all of these really cool bars, event spaces, and it's all like driven by local talent. And it really shows, and it's been a tourist attraction. So we've had over 2 million unique visitors since we launched in 2015, and it really shows that by by sort of integrating local community, not only do you have a positive impact on that area, but you also create a very authentic experience which people are drawn to, right? No one these days wants the sort of big chains where it's just soulless, right? People want that authentic experience. So it's something that's really important to us.
I think that you're right. You know, they see the bright, shiny building go up and they don't see the essence of what's behind, of what you guys are trying to do, the positive impact in the surrounding community. So I love hearing that straight from you. You know, this is why I do this, because these are conversations I have with people and never publicly. And so it's nice to share your vision. Now this is a good question. Again, backing up to the beginning, how difficult was it to get that first investment money in back then when nobody knew what co-living was?
Yeah, so it's been a journey. It's been a challenging one, but I think we're driven by overcoming challenges, right? That's what gets us out of bed. If it was easy, like I don't think we'd be doing it because it'd be boring. So, but yeah, it's been a real journey. I started the business with a £1,600 overdraft back in 2010, and really sort of bootstrapped the business for a while. But fortunately, we're able to create significant value in our earlier projects, which then gave us the sort of the balance sheet to be able to like kind of reinvest in the business and sort of do more projects. And then in sort of 2013, 14, that's when we started to bring in the sort of family office and institutional capital. And as you quite rightly say, that we were doing that at the point where the word co-living didn't even exist. We had seen the need for it and we were just delivering this product, but it wasn't called co-living. And it certainly required, a lot of convincing. I think what it came down to was belief. And we had 100% belief and conviction that this would work. To us, there was never a doubt. And if you have that, and if you can communicate that persistently, you have to kiss a lot of frogs, but then eventually you find the people that buy into that belief and that vision and want to be a part of it. Yeah, because I think all human beings are fundamentally driven by doing things that make a difference. Yeah, so it's what I firmly believe. It's why so many like very successful entrepreneurs that end up giving all of their fortune away to charity, right? Because I think ultimately we as human beings get more fulfillment when we help others and when we do something that has purpose and meaning. And so as a result, I think we've been able to raise capital from those people. Yeah. And I think with our track record, because we've delivered projects from start to finish, and we've delivered very strong returns for our investors historically, that then ticks the box in terms of, okay, is this financially gonna work? So yeah, it's combining that sort of purpose and meaning with like cold hard results in delivering.
No, and I love that. And again, now you guys, I think you have that. Now you're showing a track record of, okay, here's the results, you guys. Here's what we projected, occupancy rates and everything, and here's what we've done. Did you guys supersede your projections?
Yeah, so I mean, on all of our projects to date, we've always sort of outperformed what we thought, because we tend to be a little bit conservative, because there aren't that many data points, yeah, for what we do. And so we end up, yeah, we have to be sort of quite conservative, but you know, at the end of the day, like there is just so much demand for the end product that I think will continue to just sort of outperform projections.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So my next question now, and we've had a lot of them on this show, some of the most successful people in this space have gone to Burning Man multiple times, and you've attended, I don't know how many times, but I really want to dig in, and I've asked a few of them this too, even off record. What do you get, out of, obviously that's an incredible community, incredible, and it's life-changing, but you take some insights and some takeaways and that you implement into the collective from attending an event like that and being in a community like that?
100%. So I went to Burning Man for the first time in 2015, so 4 years ago. And it certainly inspired me and sort of evolved my perspective on a few different things. Number one, I remember having like a life coaching session, just like kind of random. We was cycling around and we saw this sign, which is like life coaching. So it's like, okay, let's give it a go, right? Because when you're there, you just want to try different things. And so I had the session with this guy, and we, started to talk about my struggles with business, and kind of, managing people, and just the kind of typical things you go through as an entrepreneur. And he gave me a really insightful piece of advice, which was that you should lead with your heart and not your head. And this to me at the time was like, seemed counterintuitive, because I think typically in the workplace and in business in general, like emotions are things that are kind of almost swept under the carpet often, and not necessarily, accepted. And you kind of have to be, strong and sort of, I think we often have our guards up, right, in the work environment. But the concept of leading with the heart and really like tuning into your emotions is something that was a piece of advice that has really evolved my own leadership skills and my ability to connect with others, empathize with others, and in my opinion, like become a far more effective and inspiring leader. So that was kind of one element. And then second is, I remember on the first day, I was kind of in the camp, and someone just comes up to me, and in the morning it was breakfast time, and they just give me like a plate of eggs, and they were just, what was strange to me was that someone was giving me something without expecting anything in return. And I just was not used to that, because we live in a world which is very transactional, where if someone does something for you, it's usually because they want, something in return. And at that moment, I felt so awkward that I remember running up to my RV, like getting all of my uncooked eggs and just giving them to this person, being like, yeah, just take it. Because I just didn't know how to accept that. But what it made me realize was that, but my belief is that all human beings are fundamentally good people and are capable of doing great things and come from a good place. However, through life, we go through experiences, we pick up baggage, and we pick up limiting beliefs and fears and insecurities that then sort of influence our behaviors. And so my belief is that if someone says something to me which is negative, or does something which is not very nice, I believe that they're not doing that because they're a bad person, but because there is some kind of fear or insecurity that is driving that. Because I believe that human beings ultimately will come from a good place.
You went to the London School of Economics, so you're right. It's like that's all you were studying, and now it's like you're able to blend that experience in, and that's amazing, because you're exactly right. I think we're programmed through life to be very transactional, and especially in the States, right? So that's really cool. And I think that the co-living communities that will ultimately succeed, are the ones that are truly built on humanity. It's a human-centric business. I think you've nailed that. So my next question is, I'm sure there's never a typical day for you in your office, but what are some things that you're normally in control of and working on? You know, I know your team handles a lot, but what do you personally work on from a day-to-day basis?
It's incredibly varied. You know, I guess I'm involved in sort of all aspects, and we're fully integrated business, right? So we do everything from the sort of upfront acquisition to then the financing, to the design, the development, the operations. So I guess I kind of touch all of those elements, but really I focus on areas where there might be issues, right, or where things kind of might not be completely going to plan. That can hugely vary. You know, like culture and people is obviously a big focus for me, because we as a business like really focus on the culture that we're creating, and then the people that we are sort of going on the journey with, for whom this is much more than just a job, right? This is like a way of life and a devotion. Yeah, it's a calling. It's not just a job. And so I spend a lot of time sort of with people, and sort of cultivating that culture. Obviously, like investors, you know, often sort of want to sort of speak to me, and I've got to manage those relationships. You know, then I guess like when we're launching a building, I'm like in the weeds about, you know, like what soap are we using, and you know, what's the messaging on our branded condoms.
Awesome.
You know, but then obviously when we're in like doing new acquisitions, and I'm like in, you know, sort of in the weeds, you know, with negotiating with the sellers, structuring the deals. So it's like hugely varied. You know, it's amazing because of the variety, but it's also the challenge, right? It's like I've got to be constantly switching gears in my head in sort of different disciplines.
What's been a big challenge, you know, in this journey thus far? If there was one thing or one category, what's been the most challenging?
Probably like the people aspect, you know, like, because people are such a integral part of what we do. And human beings are complex creatures, yeah, with like many layers. And, you know, and especially like we really focus on tuning into our emotions, yeah. And so that whilst that creates much closer connection with each other, that also adds complexity and sort of heightened emotions. So I think kind of managing the sort of people side and the relationship side is you know, it can definitely be it's the most rewarding, but it's also the most challenging and strenuous, right? When things perhaps aren't going to plan. And I guess the closer relationships you have with people, the kind of sometimes the more challenging it makes it when you're going through more difficult times.
And you guys have, so how many buildings? You have 7,500 units right now that are open, and how many buildings?
So we've got about 1,700 units that
17.
are, and then the rest is now, you know, closer to 8,000 units. You know, so the remainder of that are basically at various stages of development.
And tell us a little bit about Canary Wharf, the big opening. What makes the property that's opening next month so special compared to others? Because obviously you've probably learned as you've developed each building, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been 4 years in the making. 4 years where, you know, poured so much kind of hard work, kind of love and effort into it. So it's just really great to kind of finally see it come to fruition. I think that the scale of it is one thing, you know, 705 units. You know, it's like 50% bigger in terms of square footage than Old Oak. So it's huge project. We're really proud. We're really proud of the kind of the quality of the kind of building itself, as well as the experience that we're going to kind of bring to life and activate in it. So, yeah, I guess it's just a lot of all of those things coming together in the building. I think going to make it really special. And it's also going to just set the bar, right, for what co-living is.
And then is it a hotel use class? Is that how it's classified for hotel use, or is it residential? Or I know the UK is a little different.
Yeah, so I guess the planning use is one thing, and it's a kind of that's hotel, but it's, we're offering everything from sort of 1 night to 1 year in terms of length of stay.
Perfect. Is that all your properties across the board?
It would depend on the location. It's very much location specific.
And then you have New York City. New York is opening in September, correct?
Yes.
Paper Factory?
Yeah.
Okay, are you excited about that one?
Yeah, very much so. It's going to be really exciting to see it come to life.
Because you guys are targeting essentially, I know UK, the States. Are you going to go over to Germany next? Possibly?
Yeah, we already have our office in Germany and a number of projects coming up there.
Terrific. Perfect. So my last question that I ask everybody is, where, Reza, do you see the future of co-living going?
So future of co-living, look, I think the product is going to continue to evolve. And I believe that every human being, from the moment they're born to the moment they die, needs human connection. And so I think creating environments which are centered around human connection and community are the future. And I think in years to come, we're going to look back now and be like, how did we live the way we lived in these very isolated units where there was no sense of community or belonging?
I agree. That is a perfect place to end. Thank you so much, Reza, so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And you are doing amazing things. We're all watching and we're cheering you on.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Have a great day.
Right.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for checking out today's episode. If you want to learn more about co-living, you could check out my book on Amazon, The Co-Living Code. And of course, if you're looking for the perfect software to power your co-living concept, check out kindred.io, KNDRD.io. Thanks.